Hi everyone. Coming in here with a practice that I would call widening the vessel. With the basic understanding that part of what keeps us in states of suffering has something to do with smallness, the sort of separative and limited sense of who we are. Obviously, it keeps us feeling separate from each other and in fact also separate from a sort of place of residence of wholeness that is already there underneath the sort of smallness of our perception. So instead of the idea that we have much to do with changing the world out there a lot of the time, and without the sense that we are always trying to change something in here, like there's something that needs to be fixed, which has its own sort of smallness of identity attached to it. What if one of the core ways to practice, to meditate, and to sort of exist through the lens of spiritual practice would be to expand the vessel? You are the vessel. To expand the field of the experiencer. To expand the size of your identity so that it's not as locked. It would be the simplest and most, I think, effective way to start to get to this is if we were like a wave that didn't know we're part of the sea. And you are a wave, you do crest and have individuality, and we are diverse, and that's beautiful. We're not trying to flatten the wave. We're trying to sort of sense, though, the force of the great potency that operates beneath the surface of that wave, which is as real for us as it is for that wave. So I think that we can use this time, which is, of course, one of stress and physical distance, but also one of great awareness of the interconnectivity of all of us, just the fact of that. And if we can utilize this time as a way to get nearer to that interconnectedness and the wholeness and the depth of our place of resource, then we're equipping ourselves from something pretty phenomenal. So here's a practice for that. It's a short meditation. Please take your eyes to close. So allow in for a moment just a kind of general sense of where you're at, and let that include really wherever you're at, which for a lot of us has some anxiety in it, some discomfort. Of course, your pleasure and happiness are welcome here too. But welcome all of it in, and see if you can start to coax your attention down into your heart. Like as if that were a physical space somewhere near the region of behind the sternum, sort of descending your attention down from the head through the throat, down behind the clavicle and the sternum, until you come to rest kind of in that inner chamber of the body center of the heart. So let's take a sort of difficult feeling or sensation like anxiety. Please don't do this if you're in panic. I would open your eyes and do something else. But just a sort of more general sense of anxiety or something that's upsetting you. And let's work with that a little bit. So imagine now in the center of your heart space that you had a glass, like a glass of water. Maybe it's 8 ounces. And if that feeling of anxiety or sort of unrest were pigment, like inky, thick, dark pigment, you could imagine dropping it into the glass of water that's in your heart. So drop in this kind of dark pigment. And we'll sit with that for a moment, and not for long because it doesn't feel good. But probably you feel that, now that inky pigment has tinged the whole glass, and it's all sort of thick and murky, and has taken on the character of that anxiety or unrest. You can feel that it's small. So let's expand the vessel now to as if you had a bowl full of water that were sort of as wide as the circumference of your ribs. out to the sides towards the armpits or triceps, and forward and back. And you have a bowl full of water, and now you drop that same sized drop of anxiety or unrest as though it were pigment into this vessel. And breathe as that vessel. So this thick ink does tinge the color of this bowl of water a little. But the breath and your sense of yourself as the vessel is wider. And let's just reside here briefly. And then imagine from the center of your heart, out in all directions, a lake. Placid, wide, serene, deep, and cold. And breathe as the lake. And then allow that same size drop of inky pigment to drop into the lake. Let your anxiety or unrest drop as that pigment into the lake. And just feel that the lake is big enough to hold it without any change, really. And that it's there. We didn't do anything with it. But it's assimilated. And continue to breathe that wideness. Breathe yourself as that wideness and that depth. Feel that you are vast enough to hold the unrest. And that in fact we didn't change the anxiety or unrest at all. That same drop of pigment dropped in. But the vessel is so vast that it can be held. If you'd like to stay here with your eyes closed, breathing as the lake, please continue, and I'll sign off here, sending so much love.